So, Liv, I know that when we talked to Meredith back during the summer, that was kind of during the time period where we thought we were all going to be going back to in person, and it was going to be this huge rush. And then we started seeing these variants, and then there were some worries around the recession, a potential recession, and some budget cuts. That was kind of when we started to see the change in the way people were talking about hybrid. And I think that's more of what's reflected in Meredith's in Meredith. Our discussion with Meredith is more about what she was considering true hybrid at the time versus what she was seeing, which I think at the time, which I think is probably more in line with what hybrid feels like today, and possibly into the future. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Like we've been saying, hybrid is it's been constantly evolving. It's been, it was so popular in 2021 and then became a little bit less popular. And now it feels like it's coming back, especially with in person. And I think that's the key. Like in person is back, but we can't forget about virtual because it added so much. It gave us kind of a lifeline during the pandemic, right? And now we see, oh, we can add virtual elements to in-person experiences, which maybe event professionals aren't calling it hybrid, but that is hybrid. If you're adding a virtual component to an in-person experience, that's a hybrid event. Why do you think that event professionals are leaning so much on that virtual element? Like, what does that add to an in-person experience?
Yeah, I think they're getting more comfortable with it, first of all. They're getting more comfortable with virtual. It's something that's kind of a tool in their tool belt that their event professionals are using more frequently throughout the year as a way to stay in contact with customers and prospects and attendees, and then using those large in-person events as ways to deepen those relationships. And then, over time, they're starting to add more of those virtual components, especially when you have that year-round program where you have attendees and prospects that are used to attending your virtual events. It just makes it that much easier for them to want to attend or be a part of those big flagship events, and they already know how to utilize those tools, especially if you're doing things like keeping your event technology platform consistent between events so people get to use them. You're building a community there. They know how to navigate it and how to find the content they're looking for and their agenda and learn about speakers and sponsors. And so I think it's just becoming, it's exactly what we always kind of said, right? Like hybrid feels like a buzzword. And the more and more comfortable we get with blending these virtual and in-person elements, the less we need the buzzword. I feel like that's kind of what we're seeing at this point, where it's just how much is the word hybrid serving us versus what actually hybrid is, which to your point is, bringing in virtual elements. I still think that putting a camera at the back of the room is not, a good example of hybrid. But having a full event platform for your in-person event that people can log into from anywhere, and even in-person attendees could, decide after a late night hanging out with people they haven't seen on the first day of an in-person event that maybe they want to sleep in and attend their first couple of sessions from their hotel room on their laptop before they kind of grab their Starbucks and mosey over to the venue. Meredith talked about the idea of expanding virtual events over multiple days. Like the idea of these asynchronous events is another really important piece. Like there's no reason necessarily why your in-person event and your virtual components of that same event have to be happening at the exact same time in the exact same ways, which I think is compelling. And Meredith was potentially kind of ahead of her time there, talking about that 4 or 5 months ago, and now we're seeing a lot of that with our customers.
Yeah. Yeah, MTA definitely, they've been ahead of the game. They were working remote before any of us were working remote in 2020. So we'll link their customer story in the show notes again for you guys to check out. But yeah, I agree with all of that. And I think a big piece of wanting to incorporate virtual is all of the data that you get. Why would we go back to the in-person events where it was kind of hard to capture a lot of data when you can add a mobile event app and be able to track, what people are engaging with and use that to prove ROI to your sponsors and exhibitors and improve your event design. I feel like that's something that is so important, and we're not going to leave behind because so many event professionals, I think the majority of event professionals can agree that having a data-backed data-driven event program is so important. And you get that with those virtual elements. That really captures so much of that information that you just wouldn't be able to capture without having some sort of technology in place. And it's more inclusive. Like EC was talking about that. I love our interview with TransTech. But you're just able to reach people who, might not be able to make the investment for whatever reason to attend in person. So I love that it makes events more inclusive, just totally opens up and broadens the audience that you're reaching. And not only is that a value add for you, but it's a value add for your attendees too. They might be connecting with people, all across the globe or across the country, wherever you're located, that they wouldn't be able to meet otherwise because they're not both at the, in-person experience.